On the morning of her 66th birthday, Evelyn Carter awoke before dawn, just as she had for nearly 40 years. The Little Craftsman, home she owned in Salem, rested in perfect silence, wrapped in the pale blue glow of early morning. She tied her faded floral apron around her waist and smiled softly as fresh coffee filled the kitchen with its comforting aroma. Birthdays had never been about expensive presents for Evelyn. What mattered most was gathering the people she loved around one table. That morning she prepared everything with the same care she had shown throughout her life. A herb-crusted roast rested in the refrigerator, vegetables waited to be roasted, homemade rolls were rising beneath a clean towel, and the dining table shimmered beneath polished silverware and her finest china. Her son, Nathan Carter, and his wife, Vanessa, had been staying with her for almost 2 weeks. They claimed their home's kitchen renovation would take only a short time, and Evelyn had welcomed them without hesitation. Family helps family. That had always been her belief. The back door opened without warning. Vanessa stepped inside carrying several designer shopping bags, barely looking up from her phone. "Something smells pretty strong in here," she said, wrinkling her nose. Evelyn laughed gently. "I hope that's a compliment. Dinner should be wonderful tonight." Vanessa glanced toward the carefully decorated dining room before checking her smartwatch. "Actually, about tonight," Evelyn paused. "What about it?" "Shit. We've invited some clients over for drinks and networking." The words came casually, almost carelessly. "We'll need the dining room." Evelyn frowned. "I thought we were celebrating my birthday together." Vanessa gave an indifferent shrug. "You still can. Just take your dinner upstairs to your bedroom. It'll be quieter." The sentence settled over the room like cold rain. Evelyn slowly turned toward Nathan, who stood silently in the hallway pretending to read messages on his phone. He had heard every word, yet he said nothing. Not one sentence, not one objection, not even a glance toward the mother who had spent decades sacrificing everything to give him a better life. For the first time, Evelyn realized silence could wound far more deeply than cruel words ever could. She untied her apron, folded it neatly on the counter, and whispered only 4 words. "I understand." Then she quietly walked out onto the back porch, leaving the untouched birthday dinner behind. Evelyn remained on the porch long after the morning breeze had chased away the last traces of dawn. She sat on the old wooden swing that her late husband Daniel had built with his own hands years before. Every gentle creak reminded her of happier birthdays, days filled with laughter, homemade cakes, and family gathered around the same dining table that now seemed to belong to everyone except her. Inside the house, she could hear Vanessa moving furniture and talking cheerfully on the phone. "Everything has to look perfect," Vanessa laughed. "The clients will be here tonight?" Not once did she mention Evelyn's birthday. Evelyn slowly unlocked her phone and opened her banking app. Earlier that week, she had prepaid for an elegant chocolate raspberry cake from the city's finest bakery. Her finger rested above the screen for only a second before she tapped Cancel Order. A confirmation message appeared immediately. She stared at it quietly. This wasn't revenge. It was acceptance. If no one intended to celebrate her, there was no reason to continue pretending that tonight was special. Returning to the kitchen, she switched off the oven. The roast would never finish cooking. Late that afternoon, Nathan wandered into the kitchen, looking puzzled. "Mum, what happened to dinner?" "There won't be one." His eyebrows lifted. "What about the birthday cake?" "I cancelled it." "You cancelled everything?" "Yes." He looked uncomfortable, opening his mouth as though he wanted to ask another question. Instead, he simply nodded and walked away. His silence hurt almost as much as before. The following morning, Evelyn walked downstairs to find empty wine glasses covering the coffee table, crumbs scattered across the floor, and stained napkins tossed across the living room. Her birthday had passed without a single candle, without a card, without even the words, "Happy Birthday." She quietly opened every window, letting the cool breeze sweep away the stale smell of wine. Nathan entered the kitchen, rubbing his tired eyes. "Mum, about last night?" She continued, wiping the counter. "I'm sorry things happened the way they did." Evelyn finally looked at him. The way they happened? He sighed. Vanessa has been under a lot of pressure at work. The gathering meant a lot to her career. She asked me to eat alone in my bedroom. I know. And what did you say? Nathan lowered his eyes. Nothing. The answer settled heavily between them. Evelyn folded the dish towel neatly. I understand. There was no anger left in her voice, only clarity. That morning, instead of preparing her usual Sunday breakfast for everyone, she picked up her shopping basket and headed toward the neighborhood farmers market. For the first time in years, she decided to spend the day taking care of herself instead of everyone else. The farmers market buzzed with life beneath a clear blue sky. Children laughed as they sampled fresh berries, musicians played soft folk songs near the entrance, and the scent of warm bread drifted through the rows of colourful stalls. Evelyn wandered slowly without checking the time or worrying about anyone waiting for her. For years, every shopping trip had centred on other people. Nathan loved crisp apples, Vanessa preferred imported cheeses, and guests always expected homemade desserts. This morning was different. She bought a loaf of freshly baked sourdough, locally roasted coffee, fragrant herbs, ripe peaches, creamy goat cheese, and a bouquet of bright sunflowers. Every purchase was for herself. When she returned home, Vanessa stood in front of the refrigerator with an annoyed expression. "Where's breakfast?" she asked. Evelyn calmly carried her groceries toward the hallway. "I didn't make any today." Vanessa blinked. "But Nathan said you always cook on Sundays." "I've decided to start a new tradition." Without another explanation, Evelyn walked upstairs to her bedroom suite. Years earlier, after Daniel's passing, she had installed a small coffee station and compact refrigerator beside her reading nook. She stocked it with the food she had just purchased and placed the sunflowers in a glass vase near the window. A few minutes later, someone knocked. Vanessa stood outside with folded arms. "So, what exactly are we supposed to eat?" Evelyn smiled politely. "I'm sure the two of you will figure something out." She gently closed the door. Downstairs, cabinet doors opened and slammed. Drawers rattled. The unmistakable sound of frustration echoed through the house as Vanessa searched for ingredients she had never bothered to notice before. For the first time since moving in, she had to prepare her own meal. It seemed like such a small change. Yet Evelyn understood it represented something much larger. Respect wasn't usually lost in one dramatic moment. It disappeared little by little, every time kindness was mistaken for obligation. Over the next several days, she stopped quietly cleaning dishes she hadn't used. Coffee mugs remained exactly where Nathan left them. Vanessa's work papers stayed spread across the dining table. Laundry baskets no longer emptied themselves overnight. Wednesday afternoon, Evelyn drove to a neighbourhood hardware store and purchased a polished brass deadbolt. An hour later, a retired handyman named Harold finished installing it on her bedroom door. Nathan arrived home just as Harold packed away his tools. He stared at the new lock. "Mum, why would you need that?" Evelyn thanked Harold before turning toward her son. "It gives me peace of mind." "But we're family." She met his eyes with calm honesty. Family should respect one another's privacy. Before Nathan could answer, Vanessa appeared in the hallway. Her expression immediately hardened. "A lock?" she asked with a short laugh. "Seriously?" Evelyn nodded. "My room is my personal space." Vanessa crossed her arms. "You act like we're invading your privacy." Evelyn's voice remained gentle. "My privacy disappeared the moment I was told my own dining room wasn't mine anymore." Silence filled the hallway. For the first time since arriving, Vanessa had no clever response. She turned sharply and walked downstairs, her footsteps echoing through the house. Nathan lingered outside the bedroom. "I'm sorry it's come to this," he whispered. Evelyn quietly turned the key in the new lock. The solid click echoed through the room. "So am I," she replied. As she settled into her favourite chair beside the window with a warm cup of tea, she realised the lock wasn't protecting a room. It was protecting something far more precious, her dignity. By the middle of the week, the atmosphere inside Evelyn's home had changed completely. The cheerful routines that had once filled the house were gone, replaced by quiet distance. Evelyn prepared her breakfast early each morning, enjoyed her coffee in the sunlit reading corner of her bedroom, and spent her afternoons tending to the flowers Daniel had planted years before. She no longer picked up after Nathan and Vanessa. If dishes sat in the sink, they stayed there. If shoes blocked the hallway, she simply walked around them. One afternoon, Vanessa entered the kitchen and frowned at the overflowing recycling bin. "Evelyn," she called impatiently, "the kitchen is getting messy." Evelyn looked up from the novel resting on her lap. "I noticed." Vanessa waited. "Aren't you going to clean it?" Evelyn calmly closed her book. "I didn't make the mess." Vanessa let out a frustrated sigh. "You've always kept this house spotless. I've decided everyone should be responsible for the things they use." Without another word, Vanessa stormed away. 2 days later, Evelyn was watering the roses in the backyard when voices drifted through the open kitchen window. Vanessa was laughing on the phone. "No, Melissa, we're in no hurry at all," she said. "We're saving thousands by staying here." Evelyn paused, the garden hose still running. "The renovation doesn't even have to start yet. Why rush? This place is free and Nathan never says no to his mother. We'll probably stay another 3 months. More laughter followed. "Nathan, we'll handle her. He always does." Evelyn slowly turned off the water. 3 months. She had welcomed them believing they needed only a few weeks. Instead, they had quietly decided to extend their stay without even asking. That evening, she collected the mail from the front entry table. Among the envelopes was one addressed to Nathan from the construction company. The return address caught her attention. Across the front was printed, "Project status deposit required before work can begin." Her heart sank. The renovation hadn't been delayed. It had never even started. Later that night, Nathan sat eating takeout while Vanessa scrolled through emails on her tablet. Evelyn joined them with a glass of water. "So," she asked gently, "how is the kitchen renovation coming?" Nathan hesitated. "It's slower than expected." "The permits are taking longer," he added quickly. Vanessa nodded without looking up. "Construction projects are always delayed." Evelyn studied their faces for a moment before writing a single sentence in the small notebook she had brought with her. Then she looked back at her son. "When do you think everything will be finished?" "Probably by the end of summer." She knew he was lying, not because of the letter alone, but because she recognized the uncertainty in his voice. Instead of arguing, she simply smiled. "I understand." She returned upstairs carrying her notebook. Sitting beside her bedroom window, she remembered a little boy who had once confessed through tears after breaking a neighbour's window because he couldn't bear telling a lie. Somewhere along the way, that honest child had become a man willing to protect his comfort instead of the truth. The realization hurt more deeply than anything Vanessa had ever said. The next morning, Evelyn drove to the botanical gardens. As she walked among blooming roses and quiet pathways, one question stayed in her mind. When had kindness become permission for people to take advantage of her? By the time she reached the exit, she finally knew the answer. She had never asked for respect. Now she would. When she returned home, she gathered important documents from her home office, property records, utility statements, insurance papers, and estate documents. She arranged them carefully across the dining table with the precision she had learned during 40 years as an accountant. No shouting, no accusations, just facts. Very soon, an honest conversation would take place at that table, and when it ended, nothing inside the house would ever be the same again. Late Friday afternoon, sunlight streamed through the dining room windows as Evelyn sat quietly at the polished mahogany table. Several neatly organised folders rested before her, each labelled in her precise handwriting. Property records, utility bills, insurance documents. Every page was perfectly aligned, reflecting the discipline she had developed during 4 decades as an accountant. She wasn't preparing for an argument. She was preparing for honesty. The sound of footsteps broke the silence. Nathan walked downstairs after finishing an online meeting. The moment he noticed the documents spread across the table, his expression changed. Mom, what's going on? Please have a seat. A few moments later, Vanessa entered the room carrying a mug of coffee. She glanced at the folders and sighed dramatically. What is all this supposed to be? Evelyn looked calmly at both of them. I'd like us to have an honest conversation. Nathan sat immediately. Vanessa hesitated before pulling out a chair with obvious reluctance. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, Evelyn folded her hands. When you moved into my home, you told me your kitchen renovation would take 3 weeks. Nathan nodded. I believed you because I trusted you. He lowered his eyes. Yesterday, I discovered the construction company hasn't even scheduled the project because the deposit hasn't been paid. Vanessa stiffened. You went through our mail? Evelyn shook her head. The letter was lying on the entry table where anyone could see it. Vanessa crossed her arms. That's still none of your business. Evelyn's voice remained steady. It became my business the moment your unfinished plans extended your stay in my home without telling me the truth. Silence settled over the room. She turned toward her son. Nathan, would you like to tell me what really happened? He stared at the tabletop for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he let out a long breath. We decided to postpone the renovation. We? He nodded. Vanessa and I thought it made more financial sense. Evelyn looked at him with quiet disappointment. So, instead of discussing it with me, you allowed me to believe you would be leaving soon. I'm sorry. Vanessa leaned forward. I honestly don't understand why this is such a huge issue. We're family. Evelyn met her gaze. Families don't build trust on deception. It wasn't hurting anyone. Evelyn's expression softened, but her voice carried unmistakable strength. On my birthday, I was asked to eat alone in my bedroom so your guests could use my dining room. Vanessa looked away. That happened once. It showed me everything I needed to know. Nathan whispered, Mom. She gently raised her hand. I've made a decision. Both of them looked up. You have 2 weeks to find another place to live. The words echoed through the silent room. Vanessa blinked in disbelief. What? Your last day in this house will be the 15th. She gave a short, sarcastic laugh. You're serious? I am. This is ridiculous. Evelyn calmly stood. No. She gathered the folders into a neat stack. The ridiculous part was allowing myself to become a guest inside my own home. Nathan closed his eyes. He knew she meant every word. Vanessa looked at him, expecting him to argue. Say something, she demanded. Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it again. His silence finally worked against him. Evelyn carried the documents upstairs, leaving them alone at the table. Over the following days, the atmosphere inside the house became strangely peaceful for her. She contacted a catering company and rescheduled the birthday dinner she had cancelled weeks earlier. This celebration would be different. She invited retired co-workers who had stood beside her through life's hardest seasons, friends who appreciated her kindness instead of taking it for granted. She transformed her sunny reading room into a cozy retreat filled with fresh flowers, family photographs, and shelves of beloved novels. Downstairs, however, anxiety replaced comfort. Nathan spent every evening searching apartment listings online, while Vanessa complained endlessly about rising rent prices. One evening, Nathan quietly knocked on Evelyn's sunroom door. May we talk? She smiled gently. Of course. He sat across from her. I've been calling landlords all day. She nodded. I know. Would you consider giving us another month? Evelyn looked at him with genuine sadness. This was never about time or money, Nathan. He swallowed. It's about respect. Yes. He lowered his head. I should have defended you on your birthday. You should have. I kept choosing the easier path. Evelyn reached for her cup of tea. And every time you chose silence, someone else carried the burden. Nathan couldn't argue. So, the 15th still stands? It does. For the first time in years, he understood that some apologies could not erase broken trust. Some lessons had to be lived before they could truly be learned. As the 15th drew closer, life inside Evelyn's house settled into an uneasy rhythm. Every evening, Nathan searched apartment listings while making phone calls to landlords, hoping something affordable would become available. Vanessa, however, spent more time complaining than packing. "I can't believe how expensive everything is," she muttered one afternoon while scrolling through rental websites. People expect a fortune for tiny apartments. Evelyn simply continued watering the flowers in her garden. She had made her decision with a clear mind, and she refused to revisit it. Instead, she focused on something that genuinely brought her happiness, hosting the dinner she had postponed after her birthday. The catering company confirmed the menu: herb-roasted beef tenderloin, grilled salmons with lemon butter, seasonal vegetables, warm artisan bread and elegant desserts. Fresh floral centerpieces would decorate the dining table, and soft music would fill the house. This dinner wasn't about making up for a missed birthday. It was about celebrating people who had stood beside her through decades of friendship and mutual respect. Every afternoon, she polished silverware, arranged flowers, and carefully placed handwritten name cards around the dining table. Watching her preparations, Vanessa frowned. "You're really spending all this money?" Evelyn smiled. "I enjoy opening my home to people who appreciate the invitation." Vanessa rolled her eyes and walked away. The following Thursday morning, Evelyn carried a basket of freshly folded linens downstairs. She stopped in the hallway. Large floral displays crowded the entryway. Several unopened cases of expensive wine stood against the wall. Presentation boards, banners, and boxes filled with office supplies occupied nearly every corner of the dining room. Vanessa entered wearing a tailored business suit and speaking through a wireless headset. She ended the call and smiled. "Oh, good. You're up." Evelyn slowly looked around the room. "What exactly is all this?" "My regional team is coming tonight." "Tonight?" "Yes." Evelyn frowned. "My dinner is tomorrow evening." "I know." Vanessa answered so casually it almost sounded rehearsed. "My co-workers need the house tonight to prepare for tomorrow's strategy meeting. They'll be working here through tomorrow evening." Evelyn stared at her. "And my dinner?" Vanessa offered a confident smile. "You'll have to cancel it." The words hung in the air. "There just isn't enough room." She glanced around the beautifully prepared dining room. "You could always meet your friends at a restaurant." For several long seconds, Evelyn said nothing. She looked at Vanessa carefully. There wasn't a hint of embarrassment, only complete certainty that Evelyn would once again step aside, just as she had on her birthday. Vanessa believed history would repeat itself. She believed kindness meant surrender. Without speaking, Evelyn quietly turned and walked upstairs. Inside her bedroom, she closed the door and sat at her desk. She picked up her phone. Her first call was to the catering company. "Good morning," she said warmly. "I'd like to confirm tomorrow's dinner exactly as planned." The manager assured her every detail remained unchanged. She smiled. "Wonderful, thank you." After ending the call, she dialed another number. This time, it was a local moving company. "I'd like to schedule a moving truck for Saturday morning." The reservation was confirmed within minutes. When the representative wished her a pleasant weekend, Evelyn answered softly, "I believe I finally will." Downstairs, Vanessa continued directing deliveries, completely unaware of the arrangements Evelyn had just made. That evening, Nathan knocked gently on her bedroom door. "Mum?" She opened it. "I wanted to check on you." "I'm doing very well." He hesitated. "I know Vanessa can be difficult." Evelyn gave him a gentle smile. "Nathan, tomorrow will settle everything." He searched her face. "What does that mean?" "You'll understand soon enough." He looked worried but asked nothing more. After he left, Evelyn glanced at an old photograph on her dresser. It showed a smiling little boy proudly holding the bicycle she had worked overtime to buy for his 10th birthday. Back then, whenever he was afraid, he had always run toward her. Somewhere along the way, he had begun running away from difficult choices instead. Tomorrow, life would ask him a question he could no longer avoid. Would he continue choosing convenience, or would he finally choose integrity? Friday evening arrived beneath clear skies, and a gentle breeze drifted through the open windows of Evelyn's home. After weeks of quiet reflection, she felt an unexpected sense of peace. She slipped into a navy blue dress that Daniel had once said brought out the warmth in her eyes. Around her neck, she fastened a simple pearl necklace, one of the last gifts he had given her before his passing. She paused in the dining room. Fresh flowers decorated the center of the polished mahogany table. Candles waited to be lit. Soft piano music floated through the house, creating the welcoming atmosphere she had imagined weeks earlier for her birthday celebration. At precisely 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Evelyn opened the door with a genuine smile. Her retired co-workers greeted her with warm hugs, bouquets of flowers, homemade desserts, and belated birthday gifts. Their laughter immediately filled the house with the kind of warmth she had been missing. "Happy birthday, Evelyn," one of them said. "We're making up for lost time." She laughed, her eyes shining with gratitude. Almost at that same moment, another stream of visitors entered through the front door. Vanessa's co-workers arrived carrying laptops, presentation folders, overnight bags, and expensive gift baskets for their corporate retreat. Within seconds, the foyer became crowded with two very different groups. Vanessa stepped confidently from the kitchen wearing an elegant business dress. Her smile faded the instant she noticed Evelyn's guests. "Oh," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Evelyn, I thought we settled this yesterday." The conversations around the room slowly stopped. Everyone looked toward them. Vanessa folded her arms. "My team needs the house tonight. There isn't enough room for everyone." Then, without the slightest hesitation, she repeated the same words that had shattered Evelyn's birthday. "Why don't you and your friends have dinner upstairs in your bedroom? It'll be much quieter." Silence filled the house. Evelyn's friends stared at one another in disbelief. Vanessa's co-workers exchanged confused glances. Nathan's face lost all colour. He had heard those words before. This time, he couldn't pretend otherwise. Evelyn stepped forward calmly. Before speaking, she looked around the room, making sure everyone could hear her. "I'd like to explain something." Nobody interrupted. "This house belongs to me." Her voice was gentle but unwavering. "I welcomed my son and daughter-in-law because they told me they needed temporary help while their kitchen was being renovated." She paused. "Instead, on my 66th birthday, I was told to eat my dinner alone in my bedroom so someone else's guests could enjoy my dining room." A shocked silence followed. Several members of Vanessa's team looked visibly uncomfortable. One woman quietly lowered her eyes. Evelyn continued. "I later discovered the renovation hadn't even begun. They chose to remain here without telling me the truth." Vanessa stepped forward. "Evelyn, that's enough." "No." For the first time, Evelyn's single word carried unmistakable authority. "It isn't enough." Just then, the catering staff arrived through the side entrance carrying trays of beautifully prepared food. The aroma of roasted beef, fresh herbs, warm bread, and baked desserts spread through the house. Evelyn welcomed them with a grateful smile before turning back toward the gathering. "My friends and I will enjoy the dinner that was planned for this evening." Then she faced Vanessa and Nathan. "And your move-out date has arrived?" Vanessa stared at her. "You can't be serious." "I arranged for a moving company to arrive tomorrow morning." Nathan slowly closed his eyes. He knew there would be no changing her mind. Vanessa turned desperately toward her manager. "This is all just a misunderstanding." The manager shifted awkwardly before clearing his throat. "I think it would be best if we moved tonight's meeting back to the office." One by one, the co-workers quietly excused themselves. Within minutes, they had all left. The expensive wine remained unopened. The presentation board stood untouched. The house fell silent once again. Vanessa stood frozen, unable to believe what had happened. For the first time since entering Evelyn's home, she had been forced to face the consequences of treating kindness as weakness. Nathan lowered his head. He finally understood that silence had a price, and someone he loved had been paying it for far too long.
Saturday morning arrived in complete silence. Sunlight spilled across the front lawn as a moving truck pulled into Evelyn's driveway shortly before 10 o'clock. Two professional movers stepped out and began loading neatly packed boxes into the truck. Nathan carried several cartons from the guest room, his movements slow and heavy. The exhaustion on his face had little to do with the physical work. He had barely slept, replaying the past few weeks over and over in his mind. Vanessa stood near the front door with folded arms, saying almost nothing. The confidence that had once defined her had vanished. She watched quietly as the last of their furniture disappeared into the truck. By noon, only a few suitcases remained. Nathan took one final look around the house before walking to the front porch. He knocked softly. Evelyn opened the door. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Nathan lowered his head. "Mom, I'm sorry." His voice trembled. "I should have defended you the very first day. Every time I stayed quiet, I convinced myself I was keeping the peace. I see now that I was only making things easier for myself, while leaving you to carry the hurt." Evelyn looked into her son's eyes and saw something she had not seen in a long time: honesty. Real, painful honesty. She nodded gently. "Yes, you did." A tear rolled down Nathan's cheek. "I don't expect you to forgive me today." Evelyn stepped closer. "I will always love you." Hope flickered across his face. "But love and trust are not the same thing," she continued softly. "Love is given freely. Trust must be rebuilt through actions, one choice at a time." Nathan swallowed hard and nodded. "I understand." She reached out and squeezed his hand. "My door isn't closed forever." He looked up. "But the next time you walk through it, you'll come as a respectful guest, not as someone who believes my kindness has no limits." "I promise." "I hope you keep that promise." Mother and son embraced quietly. It was not the joyful hug of a problem solved, but the gentle embrace of two people accepting that healing would take time. When Nathan finally stepped away, he carried the last suitcase to the waiting truck. Vanessa climbed into the passenger seat without looking back. A few moments later, the vehicle disappeared around the corner. The house fell wonderfully still. Evelyn slowly walked from room to room, opening every window. Fresh spring air drifted inside, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine and newly cut grass. The heaviness that had settled over the home for weeks seemed to leave with the breeze. She returned to the dining room and ran her fingertips across the polished mahogany table. This table had witnessed birthdays, Christmas dinners, anniversaries, tears, laughter, and difficult conversations. Now it witnessed something else: peace. That afternoon, she brewed a fresh pot of coffee and carried her favorite mug into the sunroom. Sunlight poured through the large windows, warming the comfortable chair where she loved to read. A vase of fresh flowers rested on the side table beside the novel she had been meaning to finish. She sat quietly, listening to birds singing in the garden. For the first time in many weeks, she felt completely at home. Later that evening, one of her retired co-workers called to thank her for the wonderful dinner. "It was one of the happiest evenings I've had in years," her friend said. Evelyn smiled. "It was for me too." After ending the call, she stood by the window watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. She thought about everything that had happened. She had not raised her voice. She had not sought revenge. She had simply decided that kindness would no longer come at the expense of her dignity. She realized that true strength is often quiet. It is found in setting healthy boundaries, speaking honestly without cruelty, and refusing to surrender your self-respect, even when the people testing those boundaries are the ones you love most. As darkness settled over the neighborhood, Evelyn switched on the soft lamps throughout the house. Warm light filled every room, making the home feel welcoming once again. She smiled to herself. Weeks earlier, she believed she was fighting to reclaim her dining room. Now she understood the truth. She had reclaimed something far more valuable: her confidence, her peace, her voice, and at last, her home.